2014. 14. It's 7 o'clock on my computer. Thank you all for coming and making it through this wonderful evening of winter weather. We're going to start off by roll call. It looks like everybody is here, present and accounted for. Next, I'm going to ask you to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up, we're looking for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda and add, in the Part B, add the legislative platform presentation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, folks in the audience and those that are watching at home, we just added something that was going to come out in our board member report, but we may need to take a vote on it, so we put it on number 3 of our Part B agenda. It'll be our legislative platform, and we'll have a quick 4 or 5 slide presentation. Just want to try and make it official. Have we done the right thing there?
Yes, but you have to approve the agenda.
All right, now, we're still looking for the approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, next up, we have recognition of students, staff, and public. First up on the list here is, putting my glasses on, Jefferson High School National Merit Semifinalist and Commended Students. And we have Kevin Gribner, who is the high school principal over at Jefferson. If you want to come on up, Kevin.
Thank you. No, I won't get a big head, Joe. Good evening, everybody. Chair Bergstrom, members of the board, Superintendent Fujitaki, thanks for inviting us here this evening. This is always an important event because we get to celebrate academic success and we get to recognize some of our most successful students at Jefferson High School. As Chair Bergstrom talked about, we're referring to the students who have done very well in the National Merit Competition. And just to provide a little background about the National Merit, just some statistics. 1.5 million high school students took the preliminary SAT test last October. And what they do is they recognize the 50,000 of the highest scores in that competition. 34,000 of those high scorers scored at least 201 on the selection index scale that they use. And 7 of our Jefferson students reached that mark. They're included in that 34,000, and these students are considered commended students. And they are Jorge Alonso, John Elliott, Jake Lindvall, Kelly Mitzel, Zachary Potzler, Christina Reinhardt, and Neil Walsh. So these 7 students are considered commended students by the National Merit Corporation. Now there are 16,000 students beyond that scored somewhere in the area of 218 and above on that selection index scale, and these students are considered semifinalists. And what they have an opportunity to do is to go on, do some more paperwork, submit some more material to the National Merit Corporation, and they have an opportunity to compete for 7,600 scholarships by the National Merit Corporation, and that comes to about $33 million that these students have an opportunity to shoot for, and 3 of our Jefferson students have reached that mark. Jackson Haas, Matthew Wells, and Kathleen Lang. Last week we had our scholars breakfast at Jefferson, and I said a few words, and what I mentioned there is what I want to say now is that these students were given some great gifts, some wonderful skills and talent. But what's even more important than that is that they've done something with that. They've put in the hours, they've worked hard, they've made a commitment to their individual academic programs, and that's in some ways more important than the skills, because they're not sitting still, they're going after some things. So what I would like our students to do, please, is to come up here to the podium, if you would, all of our National Merit competitors, if you'd come up to the podium, please. Yes, come on up here. And what I'd like you to do, please, is introduce yourselves to the board and members of the audience. Say a little bit about yourself. If you know where you're going to go to school, let us know that. If you know what you're interested in, what you're going to be studying, let us know that too, all right? But congratulations to all of you. Great, great job.
Hi, I'm Zach Postler. I don't know if you can hear me. I am going to go to the U of M next year, and I was going to major in biochemistry. And it's going to be nice because I already am in PSEO, so I have 2 years of that done. It's a great achievement to do.
Hi, I'm Matt Wales, and next year I'm going to go to the University of Minnesota to study economics.
Hi, I'm Jake Lindvall, and my current top plan right now is to go to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and study computer sciences next year. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Kelly Mitzel, and I'm going to be going to the University of Minnesota next year to study something in math or science.
Hi, I'm Jackson Haas. I don't know what college I'm going to yet, but I'm interested in political science.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Wang. I hope to get into Stanford and study physics or engineering.
Hi, I'm John Elliott, and I am most likely going to the University of Minnesota for some sort of engineering yet to be decided.
Hi, I'm Christina Reinhardt. I'm hoping to get into Johns Hopkins, and I would like to go into emergency medicine.
Don't be bashful about taking pictures. You can come up and make sure they smile.
These kids have a plan.
There you go. All right, guys, great job. All right, next up, we have American Education Week. Looking for a proclamation here.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approve the attached proclamation proclaiming November 17th to the 21st, 2014 as American Education Week in the Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now I have a relatively long proclamation that I'll read, and I'll try and get through it. All right, American Education Week, November 17th through the 21st, 2014. Whereas throughout American history, schools have helped democratize our nation, strengthen our communities, and widen opportunities for all people, and whereas by integrating different groups through commonly shared values, schools prepare this nation's diverse population to live harmoniously in a democratic society, and whereas for generations our schools have answered the call to develop and challenge the future leaders of our families, our communities, and our nation. And whereas there is no greater legacy than the sound education of our children and the continuing education of our adults. Now therefore, we, members of the Bloomington School Board, proclaim in the Bloomington Public Schools that November 17th through 21st, 2014 be observed as the 93rd anniversary of American Education Week.
Thank you.
That's a mouthful.
Chairman Bergstrom, Superintendent Fujitaki, and members of the board, each and every day across all of our sites and programs, there are hundreds of educational professionals that are making a difference in the lives of our learners throughout the Bloomington Public Schools. On behalf of all of these educators, I am pleased and humbled this evening to accept this proclamation from the Board of Education. As a group, we would like to thank you and let you know that your recognition is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
All right, next up is the American Education Week. I'm sorry, Chemical Health Week proclamation.
Mr.
One
Chair?
behind myself. Yes.
Be resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 proclaims the week of November 17th through November 21st, 2014 as Chemical Health Week in Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Eric, I have a rather lengthy one to read out for you again. All right, Bloomington Public Schools Chemical Health Week, November 17th through 21, 2014. Whereas alcohol and other drug abuse in the United States severely affects individuals, families, schools, and communities, and whereas the color red has been chosen to represent individual and community commitment efforts to reduce alcohol and other drug abuse in our community, and whereas business, government, law enforcement, schools, religious institutions, service organizations, neighborhoods, youth, senior citizens, and other individuals are encouraged to demonstrate their commitment to helping reduce and prevent alcohol and other drug abuse by wearing and/or displaying the color red during the Chemical Health Week and wearing and/or displaying a red ribbon. Now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Bloomington Public Schools does hereby declare November 17th through 21, 2014 Chemical Health Week in Bloomington Public Schools and encourages its students, staff, and families to participate in drug prevention education activities, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free community. Be it further resolved that the school board encourages all students, staff, and parents to support alcohol and other drug abuse prevention efforts year-round.
Thank you, Chair Bergstrom, Superintendent Fujitaki, members of the board. Typically, I have the chairperson of the Safe and Drug-Free Schools Committee to come on this evening to accept the proclamation. We've had turnover in that position. That's a person from the city of Bloomington. We had Denise Reese a couple of years ago, Carolyn Anderson last year, and then she left for a different state, I think, and so we're still working. I'm working with Eileen O'Connell to fill that position. Maybe it's working with me. I'm not sure what's going on, but we're going to have our third one in 3 years. But I am happy to be here tonight to accept the proclamation. Luckily, a lot of work goes into Chemical Health Week that happens sort of in advance of that with the Safe and Drug-Free Schools Committee from the year before, so we'll be ready. Look for those signs of red in your schools, and thank you for recognizing Chemical Health Week.
All right, next up, we're looking at the Minnesota Literacy Council Award. Looking for Gina Carpenter, who is the coordinator of the Adult Educational Services for Metro South, ABE Volunteers and Learning Exchange.
Good evening. It's my honor to introduce Mary Jo Bayless, who I feel really doesn't need an introduction before this group. Mary Jo received the award for excellence in volunteer engagement from the Minnesota Literacy Council. This statewide award recognizes a professional in the field of adult literacy who demonstrates vision, diligence, and commitment to integrating volunteers into adult literacy programs. Metro South is one of the adult basic education programs that consistently has the highest student achievement outcomes for large consortiums in the state of Minnesota. I know this is due in part to the excellent volunteer program Mary Jo has helped develop. With our volunteers, we have been able to add the academic experiences for our students led by volunteers, from conversation skills and math classes to reading skills and writing classes. Mary Jo's greatest talent, and she has quite a few, is her ability to find just the right opportunity to help a volunteer best use their skills to be successful. Here's what one volunteer had to say about her experience with Metro South. My experiences helping in an ESL with SHAPE and now Metro South in 3 programs these past several years have been completely different from each other. I helped for 2 years at Eden Prairie, Hennepin Technical College, in the evenings with mostly Somali women. Then I helped for 2 years in Edina with a mixture of ethnic groups, no refugees. I had to do quite a bit of lesson planning and teaching there. And now the population in Bloomington, where I have volunteered the last 2 years, is mostly Mexican or Latina women. Each experience has been good for me. I have gained some understanding and insight into the difficulties newcomers face and the opportunities they have in our community. I appreciate the efforts of all of you in the office to provide these volunteer opportunities for me and the other volunteers. I think that I probably gain far more than I give. We at Metro South are indeed fortunate to have Mary Jo as our assistant volunteer coordinator. She has helped us create a volunteer program that is valued and respected by administration, teachers, staff, and students. Her personal connections with each volunteer that walks through the doors at Metro South help them be our ambassadors in the community. And Mary Jo was recognized at a volunteer management conference this last Friday. Congratulations and thank you, Mary Jo.
Thank you, Gina. I just want to say briefly, thank you to Gina for being such an amazing leader in our program, and to my team, Judy Stelmazak and Terry Blackburn, who are here tonight. You guys didn't have to do that. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to work in an organization where you get so much support and everybody recognizes the mission and is all on the same page and working toward the same goal, and that's to provide our learners with the best experience we can. And we have the benefit of bringing in volunteers who want to share their talents and skills and putting them to work. And I think they do learn a lot doing that, and it brings the community in, and it tells our story when they go out and go home and work in their other groups they're in and that kind of thing. I love the sign up there that says inspiring all our learners. We are really proud of our adults that we work with every day, and even more proud of the volunteers that we get to work with every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. All right, is there anyone in our audience who wishes to address the school board on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? I'm not seeing anyone. We're starting to thin out a little bit. All right, just because I was talking to some of the folks in the audience, I happen to know the answer to the next question. Do we have anyone here from a senior 12th grade government class? And if so, I want to have you come on up to the microphone here and just tell us your name and maybe a shout out to your teacher.
My name is Paul Piskowski. I am here taking notes for my AP government class over at Thomas Jefferson High School. My teacher is Brian Truzinski.
All right, Paul, thanks for coming and being brave, sitting in the front row. Paul's going to be looking for a signature on his agenda or a picture or something to prove that he was actually here, even though all of this is being recorded. All right, next up, we're looking for a motion to approve Part A agenda as is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, for those of you keeping track, and we're on the back of tonight's agenda, we're moving to Part B. First up is the authorized representative for Minnesota Department of Education.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 designates Rod Zivkovich, Executive Director of Finance and Support Services, as the identified official with authority with the Minnesota Department of Education for SERVS financial information related to the operations of Independent School District 271, Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
All right. Evening, Rod.
Good evening.
What have you got for us?
Chair Bergstrom, Superintendent Fujitaki, board members. This is a release from the board that needs to go to the state of Minnesota to be able to have myself be the processor of any serves or federal funding that is given to the district. So it's a process that in the past was not required, but is being required going forward.
Okay, we have any questions here, comments? This is, looks as though we're just doing business and making sure that T's are crossed, the I's are dotted.
Exactly.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Rod. And you're gonna, I think you're gonna stay in place for this next one. Here is policy review. We're looking for a first reading on policy 726, consultant services. Would like to read this one. Jim.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District Number 271 accepts the first reading of revised policy 726, consultant services.
Second.
All right, give that to Don. Rod, can you walk us through this one?
Sure. This is a policy that was brought to the board back last June, and there was some confusion in the wording originally from both the prior process of the policy and then also with the most current. So what we did is we went back and looked at this policy more in detail, ran it through our legal counsel, and came up with the revisions that we are presenting tonight. In summary, what this policy is in place for is that if the district hires consulting services to provide us with guidelines or specs for a certain project, that company or a relationship to that company is not allowed to bid on those type of jobs. And what it's protecting the district from is someone speccing something that only they can provide. So it's just an overall protection for the district for those type of processes.
All right, any questions, comments for Rod? All right, it seems pretty straightforward. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much, Rod.
Thank you.
Moving along.
All right, and then this was the addition that Director Bennett made at the beginning of the agenda. This is our number 3 on Part B. This is the legislative platform, and Nellie Corman is going to give the PowerPoint on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, it's time for the report. The so promised legislative committee report, first official report. As you know, the legislative committee is conformed by Don Steigaff, Tom Bennett, and myself, Nellie Corman. So I'm gonna try to go through this thing. We have met a few times in order to come up with the goal, well, in order to fulfill goal number 5, which is one of the goals for our school board, which is establish an annual school board legislative plan. So in order to do that, we have been meeting a few times, to identify what we believe would be the priorities for the board in order to take an action prior to the start of the legislative session. So we also met with Superintendent Fujitaki and discussed some of the proposals that we believe would be good for our board to have included in our legislative document, our legislative platform. So the idea was to have this all ready for you by December 2014. And then we will continue to meet. We want to, as a legislative committee, we want to establish and implement a legislative plan depending on what the board decides. And that will be done by January 15 from January 15 to the end of the legislative session, and then come back with a final result to the board by June 2015, which would be the end of the session assessment. So this is the proposed legislative priorities that we have for you tonight. Let me see. First one is adequate, sustainable funding. Of course, you know, we would like to see this happen and increase the general education formula allowance that is sufficient to cover annual cost increases. That is intended, you know, a general education formula allowance that is intended to provide adequate funding to sustain the K-12 education program, adequate funding for special education programs as well, because funding has not kept pace with mandated programs, which are subsequently subsidized with general education funds. Next, we have the early learners, pre-K and kindergarten. Funding of programs that prepare children for kindergarten. Funding that should not conflict with the district's adequate, sustainable funding priority. The next one we have is a commitment to educational research to support, I have a hard time with this word, qualitative research on instructional and leadership strategies that led to higher learning rates for all students with a particular focus on achievement gap reduction. And on this one, I'm gonna ask our expert, Dr. Dave, to help us with this. You can explain this a lot better.
Thanks, Director Corman. There are certain things that Minneapolis and Bloomington have been able to do with beat the odds studies to find out what's happening to produce exceptional results. And the proposal here is to kind of expand that work to the state level. The first bullet point would say, follow up on the multiple measures ratings that schools receive throughout the state, and really find out what's going on at the school level and grade level teams, and perhaps in areas like English language learners or students in poverty, to find out who are the school districts and schools that are producing the greatest growth and what can we learn from them. So in that regard, we're just recommending funding that would go to the Department of Education to do this kind of evaluation work, or to do an RFP for researchers to come in and follow up on those results. And then bullet point 2 would be a recommendation to fund a consortium of districts that exists already through TIES. TIES has 30-some districts that are interested in doing collaborative research, and so in this regard, we would produce value-added, or what we call beat the odds reports, and then schools and districts could follow up with studies similar to what we did with our middle school math, to find the teachers, the grade level teams, to find out what kind of instructional strategies, leadership strategies, school-wide support strategies that are involved in producing such great results. We've been fortunate to have 2 of our schools be identified as celebration schools. wouldn't it be nice if we had research then getting behind that label to find out what schools like our celebration schools are doing? This would benefit the whole metro area. And so the first one is to do a statewide analysis, and the second is, and I can provide leadership in that second area in terms of the consortium with TIES. We've already talked to the TIES leadership. They're very interested. We just need some funding to carry it out.
Thank you. And as you know, we'll have questions for the end, so we can wait. Okay, the next one, reduction on student testing. Support legislation to replace the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, MCAs, with measures of academic programs, MAP. So, you know, basically kind of looking into having, looking more into what is growth with MAP instead of looking at the scores of the MCAs. Proposed legislative plan. So the first one is to review proposed legislation that aligns with the school board's legislative priorities and present the proposed plan of action on those bills. The second, encourage legislators to introduce bills that align with the school board's legislative priorities. Number three is to monitor and identify bills that may not align with legislative priorities. Consider these bills for school board discussion or action at the discretion of the legislative committee as well. The next steps is to seek school board approval on legislative plan and priorities. As you know, we're bringing this proposal to you tonight, but it is totally, completely open for discussion, questions, comments, concerns, etc. So this is not a final document, doesn't have to be. The second one is to implement the legislative plan once we decide what it is that the board wants to see. Number three, provide periodic updates on the legislative plan. As we're following the session, we're gonna be tracking and monitoring bills and what's happening. So we will be providing the board with an update of what's happening with our plan and with all other proposals that are out there. And number four, present year-end report following 2015 legislative session, so that we all know what is that happened, what passed, what didn't happen, etc. Okay. Any questions? Dr. Davis here. The three members of the legislative committee are here, and Mr. Les Fujitaki.
Questions, comments, yeah.
Well, I commend the committee for going through so much. Was this just from the three minds, or did you have other input from administration and other?
Both.
All that. Had any of the legislators been aware that we're doing this, our local legislators?
No, not yet. Okay. No, first we decided we will bring it to the board for discussion before we take the next step.
Because I mean, some of the input could be helpful. The question I had then was on the commitment to educational research. Is proposing the legislation to fund the evaluation, the fact that Bloomington and TIES, and we've done this beat the odds thing, and I don't know if there's grant money available to pursue this on a local level rather than go through the legislature and say, hey, this is going to be great. We only need $6 million to put this research plan in place that's going to benefit all of the schools. Sometimes we start out small and just try to get a grant or some funding for this particular effort. And then, like in the past, it's been so successful, then it can be replicated in other districts, or other districts want to jump on the wagon and help do it too. So I guess I'm asking, is there some money ahead of this, grants or something like that? Once we approach this and say that, there's bound to be some others that are going to say, oh, I want to do that, let's do that. I think we can get some money or some grants to do that.
Director Sorum, I would say that there has been some grant support, significant grant support for over the past 5 years through the Bush Foundation. And they brought the technology to do the beat the odds analysis, and had districts committed to working with universities. But unfortunately, there was a change in leadership at the foundation, and they decided not to continue funding. So it was not just Bloomington that was involved, but a number of districts throughout the state. And so this is sort of a follow-up on that. I'm unaware of any particular grants that are out there that would fund this directly. There are federal competitions, and they're quite competitive. One could try to go through a competition. But we got a feeling from talking with the legislature last session that they would like to see a proposal like this. I presented to Senator Torres Ray's Education Committee on the progress for ELL students. And at that time, she indicated she'd kind of like to see something to fund follow-up studies of these schools that make significant progress. So that was part of the initiative. It's an excellent question. You know, the best way to do things sometimes is to start small and get replication. We have a number of studies under our belt just here in Bloomington, and Minneapolis has done some, but it's an excellent question.
And just the second part of it is with the voluntary consortium with ties, that's always a good start in doing it. But then, like I said, so many good ideas once other districts within that whole ties organization, the board, I'm a member of the board that'll be going to their annual meeting, and as soon as something, casual conversation starts up, somebody else, then all of a sudden someone picks up on that too. And not to necessarily be selfish in our desire to do it, but that's a big enough base to be able to work with something like this and have it be acceptable to the legislature and or corporations or partners in that regard.
Yeah, that was our thinking, as well as that we have a well-established relationship, not just Bloomington with the ties research team, but all of our neighboring school districts that belong to the ties. And in the initial meeting, we had 30 representatives there, but my feeling is probably most ties districts would want to be part of this. The nice thing is, once you've produced the reports at the state level, you have the potential of involving any district in the state. So my hope would be that it would open up into state funding for any district to get this kind of information. But the significant thing about ties infrastructure is that they house all of the data for the MAP assessment and the MCAs for their user districts. So it's very easy then to funnel that information to the beat the odds analysts. And then they're also known for their training. So we could do joint training of how to use the information to drive instruction and how to show examples of beat the odds within their facility. They've got excellent staff development opportunities. So it seemed like a fairly large pilot, but a manageable pilot, and then potentially expanding to the whole state.
Thank you very much.
All right, does anyone else have any other questions? Rick?
As far as adequate funding for special ed and other programs that were mentioned in there, do we have a general price tag of what we're looking at in terms of that? And or are there other ways of funding it? Because I know one of the issues that has been brought up prior is that they'll earmark it towards a certain program, but once that program's fully funded, what you actually need is some more money over here, but you can't use it because you can't cross where you're getting the funding. And so the question I'd have is do we know what we would need? What does fully funded actually mean? And also, would it be better to approach it in terms of allowing us our own flexibility in placing the funds versus having increased funding for a specific target, because our target could shift over time.
We actually had a lot of conversation about that because we looked at the Anoka Hennepin, their platform, and they actually put a dollar amount in there. They're requesting $300 per pupil on the formula, and which would be a 5% increase. So we went back and forth deciding, should we put the number in there? Should we ask for 300 or for 5%? And that's what we wanted to leave it open so we could have this conversation here. If we should ask for 5%, should we ask for 300%? Should we leave it open? And then when we present to our legislators, because I think part of our fear is that we'll have our legislative platform, and they'll say, well, yeah, we raised the formula last year. We gave you an increase, which, is only 1%, which doesn't really keep up with inflation. So we're looking for at least funds that keep up with inflation. So I think it's for board discussion if we want to put a number in there, or should we leave it empty and just have that conversation with our legislators?
What do we think?
And that's different than the specific one for special ed funding. And then you also saw the pre-K funding.
Early
We
learning.
said to make sure that we did not want that to take from the general fund, wanting it in addition, or, not to, if we ask for pre-K funding, don't say we get this and not this, is kind of, the point there is why that was specifics in, underneath it says, we could see that one. Oh, right there, yeah, funding should not conflict with our other funding. So that was another question. The special ed funding, do you want to talk about, we would never get what we are not getting in cross subsidies already. We would never get that. That law was passed in 1975, is that correct?
Yeah.
Federal government said they would pay 40% in 1975. As far as I know, I don't think it's ever been above 18% yet, so we have a long ways to go.
The state and federal government mandates the special ed programming required for special ed students, and they also provide the funding. The funding doesn't come close to the cost of those mandated programs, and we need to take money away from our general ed allowance to subsidize the special ed programming that's mandated. And so whether as far as a dollar amount, I don't have one, but right now we're talking the millions of cross subsidy coming from the general ed allowance to subsidize the special ed program. As far as whether by funding the special ed program we'll be taking away money from the general ed allowance, it's basically a wash, because either you fund this or you fund this, because it's coming out of basically the same pot of money. So it's better to ask for both and see what you can get.
I'm sure all of our local legislators are watching this. I know they're dialed into this, so. The one part that first of all, thanks for all the work that you guys did on this. I appreciate it. The one part that I think resonates loud in my mind anyways is slide number 4, which is just happens to be early learners, pre-K and kindergarten. The funding should not conflict with the district's adequate sustainable funding priorities. So in other words, we're not going to, if this is what we're already getting, sure you can have pre-K funding, but we'll just take some from here. We're looking for, as I understand this, we're looking for additional funds.
Yes.
And that's always the rub. It's do we get adequate sustainable, and then can we get additional funds? So that's the conversation, and that's the one that really will drive, I'm sure, all of the legislative platforms. Do we have the right funding, and are they just going to switch it? Is it a shell game, or do they actually give us more than what we've been getting? So that's the one that
I think part of that issue is we all know that the research says early childhood is our best chance for closing the achievement gap. But so we would like to fund as much early childhood as we can for that reason, but not at the risk of taking money from already sustainable funding.
Yeah. All right. Jim.
Yeah, on that particular topic, funding all-day kindergarten falls under the general ed. But pre-K, doesn't that fall under community ed? And so are we, by combining the two, are we creating some kind of problem? Or should we have, understanding that all-day kindergarten is that, and then just talk about early learners pre-K, not necessarily kindergarten? Funding and programs that prepare children for kindergarten is the pre-K element. So by leaving off kindergarten, which is in the general fund, are we mixing up a couple of different funds?
So you're suggesting that we drop and kindergarten from the title?
That's what I'm thinking of I'm dropping it, because then we can concentrate on the early learners pre-K, which is one of our big emphases.
It's a good catch. I didn't even realize that. Pre-K and kindergarten we have written on there.
Yeah.
Well, it is, we are currently K-12, so that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
What do we think? We found our first edit?
And it wasn't found by Rick.
Yeah, right, sorry, Rick.
Good, Jim, that's good.
I have no use anymore. Now that I've trained Mr. Storm. Drop the mic.
And at least for the next little while, this is a fluid document. It is available to edit.
Oh, he would be the guy.
Yeah, I like what you put together. I think it's all makes good sense.
Okay, yeah,
I
Maureen.
just have a question. Do you have plans to have a forum with the legislators?
That will be, yes, part of it. But this
January.
will be just the platform when it comes to the legislative committee platform or the platform of the board. Yes. And I'm thinking maybe Dr. Dave can tell us a little bit more about testing, if that's still a question that we have. Where did it go?
Throughout the country, there's a big debate about how much testing is too much. The governor has really weighed in that this is a top priority of his to see a reduction in the amount of testing, especially when there's redundant kind of testing for similar purposes. And so what we're recommending here is that the state work carefully with the federal's authorities to see that assessment like the MAP could take the place of the MCAs. The MAP has some superior uses for instructional purposes. Teachers really like the growth model. They can compare their students' growth to a national norm. The test itself is an adaptive test, which is very accurate at the top and the bottom of the distribution, and also provides an experience for students that is challenging but not overwhelming. And so, there are many districts that are using both the MAP and the MCA because they value the MAP data so much that they're willing to double test. Some districts do fall, winter, and spring MAP testing along with spring MCA testing. In Bloomington, we have all schools do it in the spring along with the MCA, and then it's kind of voluntary for fall and winter. But that springtime is really thick with testing. And now that all assessments are on the computer, the labs, the personal computers, when they're allowed for testing, it's going to be difficult logistically as well as emotionally for children. And I think we get to a point where we're taking too much time away from instruction. So that's why we recommended this, as it's something that is in legislation now, is that the new assessments are supposed to develop fully adaptive assessments that align with the standards and that have these diagnostic purposes as well. But right now, we're not there with our current test. And so there are a number of legislators and districts that have been pushing this all along. And there was at least one bill that was at least started in the legislature a couple of years ago. So this is something that I support personally, but many of my colleagues in the assessment field feel like we need to spend that extra time assessing in the classroom with formative assessments and not have duplicate summative assessments which are used for federal reporting. So that's some of the background.
So, Mr. Chair, it brings up a good point. If we have this on our platform, suggested platform for our legislators, and maybe some of them were in support of this a year or so ago, or whatever it is there a groundswell to keep it, or redoing a different type of thing rather than these two? I mean, I guess I heard you say some of your colleagues are.
I think there would be a number of districts that would be willing to testify in favor of this bill. And legislators always like to have folks from the field, teachers testify, et cetera, that this is a good thing. And I think a lot of parents would support this as well because of the burden of testing at the end of the school year.
Thank you.
All right. Again, thanks for all the hard work and energy and effort put into this. I know that our legislators will be interested to know that we're putting some pen to paper. So let's see, our next steps. We're looking for, yes, Maureen?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd be willing to make a motion that the board accepts the platform as written or as amended with that one change.
Yep. Slide 4, we'll take out the words "and" kindergarten and just have it be pre-K. So we have a motion and?
Second.
All right. You don't want to second your own work, huh? All right, so Rick had to step out real quick here. We'll give him a second or two, and then we can get a full vote. But again, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and as Nellie mentioned, this is a fluid process. It's still subject to change.
It is, and as we, keep an eye on what's going to happen towards the beginning of the session, kind of looking at what bills are going to be out there, we might also see some things that kind of aligns with our own purposes,
Okay.
goals as a board.
When does the session start, Mr. Chair? February?
Isn't it
the
the
end of
January?
third week in January, I think? Something like that.
So a lot of legislators are gathering information now
Yeah.
to begin their bill writing.
Yeah, and AMSD and MSBA, they already have a platform, so we thought it would be important for our district to have a platform before they start. And once they start, we might find some things that are similar as well, and we're just already supporting some of those.
So we're hoping to have our legislative forum before session starts, so probably second week of January, something like that. First week of January, what's? February 6th is when it starts?
January.
Oh, wow.
January 6th, that's early.
Wow,
New
that's
members
early.
New members get sworn in and so
Okay.
forth like that too.
So we won't have
Be-
before it starts.
We have the MSBA sessions in January 15th or 16th.
Yeah, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
So that would be good to have this solidified so we can pass it out down there or lobby, whatever we want to do for this platform to include it in some of that, even though the session had already started. But it's a viable option to have this ready.
And
for
we
them.
would also be ready for when we have our next legislative forum.
Okay. Rick, what we did was we had a motion to accept this presentation with slide number 4, which is the early learners pre-K with that amendment, so it'll say early learners pre-K and kindergarten will be removed. And so we had a motion and a second. We're looking for a vote. Now we're all ready to rock and roll. All those in favor of accepting this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much, again, for all the hard work, energy, and effort. All right, that moves us into board member reports. This is an opportunity for each board member to share what they've been up to since the last board meeting. It can include committee assignments and any other activities that you've been able to take part in within the district. Who would like to go first? Anyone? Bueller?
Well, I'll tell you, I attended the Valley View Middle showcase that they had in October 29th, I believe it was. And it shined a light, I guess you'd say, on their Nobel program, on their AVID program. And as I told the principal there, I think Valley View is like our hidden gem in this district. We really got to get the word out about some of these programs, because even tonight with our youth advisory committee, the children, the middle school kids were saying they love that Nobel program, they love AVID, and people should know about it.
Yeah, Ben and his staff do a wonderful job over there. And AVID is Advancement via Individual Determination, if I'm recalling correctly. Yeah. Any others? I have my list, but I don't want to jump on anyone's. Jim?
Well, I attended the City of Bloomington Human Services Veteran Appreciation Breakfast this morning as a veteran. And it was so nice to see. They were so crowded that we had the overflow go into, if you've ever been to Creekside, they have the big cafeteria, then they had the late sign-ups go into the library, which I was one. So it was just a separate little room, but they had so many people there, and they were veterans from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and all kinds of people in various positions. But it was really good to see and to talk to so many of them. And I guess maybe I was one of the youngest veterans there, let's just say, you know. And it was so nice to talk to some of them who had been around Bloomington for a while and still support education and are still positive about all the things that Bloomington and the city does. And what really made it exciting was the fact that so many of our principals from our schools actually did the serving of the food to all of the veterans, and our chair was there also to serve. But then it was represented from our city council and school district, and we had a wonderful speaker, Ron Schwerman. Have to give him credit because he wrote a book, Broken But Not Abandoned. He shared his story about losing both of his arms and one leg in a rocket attack in Da Nang, Vietnam, and how he survived all of the turmoil and problems that happened, PTSD, drinking, and other things like that. And then he overcame all of that, and now he's written a book, and he's on kind of a speaking tour. He's always talking about the positive aspects of what happened. But it was just a very inspiring session, and it reminded us that actually on the 11th, Tuesday, we have the flag-raising ceremony at the various schools. And if you have a chance to get out to any one of those, to thank the Minnesota Army National Guard for their support for Bloomington schools too, that they've done over the years. So that's my veteran message for tonight.
All right, thanks. Dawn, were you?
You gonna go?
No, you go ahead.
All right. So I attended the school board rep to the Community Collaborative Council, and they had another one of our Pathways community meetings that we've been having throughout this fall, this process. And, you know, the conversation there was really good. There was a lot of people with a lot of comments, but, you know, they seemed to have a lot of common threads, no matter which one I went to. And I even thought it was interesting tonight, the youth advisory. Some of the things they were talking about were some of the same things that I heard. And one of the big things that I hear everywhere is that people are interested in, even the students tonight, in some job shadowing, some understanding about careers. It's hard to know what you want to do when you're in 8th grade, when you don't understand what the jobs are. And yet, that was the same thing that business people were saying, you know, somehow we have to show our students what these jobs are and what they can reach for. So I just thought that was very interesting, that seems to be theme in all of them. And then I also had the pleasure of attending one of the Jefferson football games, and so that was fun and exciting. I also attended the Valley View Elementary conferences and their book fair. And then on October 31st, I was there most of the day for all of the fall parties that were going on in the building, and also had the pleasure while I was there for that to meet some of the Rockin' readers that are at Valley View, and what a wonderful program. Many of them have been volunteering for 10 and 15 years to come in and read once a week to kindergartners there, and so that was a great experience. And I did a few visits at Pond also. That's it, thank you.
All right. We have, yeah, Nellie.
Yes, I went to visit last week. I went to visit Southwood Center and took a tour of the school, kind of remembering those old times when my little ones were in Jolene's class, teacher Jolene, and felt pretty nostalgic to be in that classroom again. They seem to have a very good teacher this year as well, Teacher Molly. And I got to sit by the little kids and chat with them. It was very neat experience just to kind of remember what it is like to spend some time with 3-4-year-old kids. And then I went and saw some of the other classrooms as well, and I was able to sit in one of the parent meetings, the parent education meetings, and have a little conversation with them about the world's best workforce and pathways to graduation in our district. And they have a few questions, so it was really good to be there. And then I went to Westwood School, had a good conversation with Principal Hardwickson, and it was just wonderful also to be there and walk around the school and chat with some of the kids and some of the teachers, and talked about numbers and enrollment and free and reduced lunch numbers, etc. And then last Friday, I attended AMSD, and then I will be attending their annual conference on November 17th. And that's all I have right now.
All right. Anyone else before I start in? Okay. As Rick had mentioned, we had the Youth Advisory Council that met before this meeting tonight, and it was it's always fun to see the students that come to these meetings, and just to listen to what it is that they think is interesting. I think sort of in the back of my mind, I was waiting for the conversation to come around the hot dogs in the lunch line, and we did make our way around to that conversation. But it's always interesting to hear what these students have to say, and just to get their perspective on what's working, what isn't working, etc. I did attend the district-wide PTSA council meeting, listened to a presentation. David Heisted was there and gave a presentation. It's interesting to catch up with all the PTSA presidents and vice presidents, the representatives from each and every school that come. Attended a District 917 board meeting. This particular one, they're normally held over at the Dakota County Technical Center, and this one was held at the T building. The T stands for Therapeutic Education Alternative. It's a school that has a small number of students who need essentially a quiet and a controlled setting. They, for whatever reason, there's a number of different reasons, they're not able to handle distractions, noise, different lighting, that type of thing. And this particular setting provides that. And so we had a tour of that building, which is in need of some updating. Attended a Bloomington United for Youth meeting. Rick Oliva is the liaison rep, was unable to make it and got a hold of me and asked if I would fill in. And I gave Rick my notes. There was some good conversation, some follow-up conversation, and then some what's going to happen next year conversation around the Box City Vigil. And that was held over at Oak Grove Presbyterian, I believe is the name of the church, right here in Bloomington. They moved it from the campus of the Capitol over in St. Paul, where apparently you're not allowed to sleep. So somebody would walk around and shine a light in your eye at 3 in the morning, and you can't sleep. And you can sleep over here at Oak Grove. So there was a lot of good conversation around that Box City Vigil. There's some conversation about maybe joining forces with another organization here in town to make to raise awareness to even higher level. So great meeting, fun to see those people again. Attended the Future Leaders meeting hosted by the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and it was nice to see there were many students, high school students from both Kennedy and Jefferson, and that was at the new Hilton, I think it was, here in Bloomington on 82nd and France, and that was a morning. It was a half-day gathering. Also attended a meeting of the International Journalists, and this was held over at Ridgeview Elementary. There were approximately 20 journalists from around the world. They were here for, I think, a week. They were hosted by the University of Minnesota, and they wanted to come and see what makes us so successful. They were looking for a successful school district and some buildings, and I'm sure there's some connections along the way that helped them find us, but they came and chatted with us. I met somebody from Denmark, Azerbaijan, I think, if I'm not wrecking that name too badly, but all over the world. And they came and they had a chance to visit the classrooms and ask questions and watch how things were going on. So that was really interesting. Attended the honors breakfast at Jefferson. That was a lot of fun. Just to hear these kids, many of the kids you saw tonight were at that breakfast. I was very fortunate to have a guided tour of our SUN program over at Olson Middle School. SUN is an acronym for Students with Unique Needs. I was able to sit in on an assessment. They were in, it was like a gym class, and the kids were bouncing the ball and counting, or trying to keep the ball up with one hand and not be distracted by someone else in the room. And then there was they had little scooters that they would get on and scoot around the floor, and one of them would take a great big, what looked like somebody's arm with a finger pointing on it, and they were playing tag. And what they didn't understand or may not have understood was that they were working on fine motor skills and just sort of allowing someone into their personal space, which is often difficult for some of these students. So it was very interesting to see how this worked and how the students and staff got along, and just a real big thanks to the staff for everything that they do for those students over there. Made it to the Jefferson win over Southwest. It was a cold night. It was a fun night, a big crowd, a great game, and did not make it to, I think that was the quarterfinal, and then Jefferson didn't quite get past, was it Lakefield? Mankato, and in their section final game. But it was a great season, and it was a lot of fun. So that pretty much does it for my report. Superintendent?
Thank you, Chair Bergstrom. I have 4 topics. First is I'm happy to report that the joint City Council School Board meeting has been confirmed for December 10th at 7 p.m. The main agenda topics will be an enrollment projection presentation by demographers Hazel Reinhardt. Another topic will be a presentation by our state demographer, Susan Brower. She'll be giving an overview of changing demographics in Minnesota. Second topic is that in honor of Veterans Day, our schools will be having flag-raising ceremonies. The ceremonies will be conducted by the Minnesota Army National Guard. I'm going to take this opportunity on behalf of our school community to thank all the men and women who have served and who could continue to serve our country. The third topic is we have a Family Star University program. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a graduation ceremony from that program. Families who participated in an 8-week course will be graduating, and that course is designed to help those families help their children be successful in school. And that program will be held at Oak Grove Middle School. The last topic is Minnesota School Public Relations Association, also known as MINSPRA, gives out annual awards. I'm happy to report that our district won a 2014 MINSPRA Star Award in the Strategic Communications category. And it was for our public relations program on our referendum 2013 Safe and Innovative Schools. And that award will be presented at the MINSPRA conference on November 13th. So congratulations to Rick Hoffman and his communication team.
All right.
And that concludes my report.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Do you have a location for the city council school board meeting, or are we still working on that?
Everybody's so excited. Both parties would like to host the meeting. So we're having conversations with the city. And we'll let you know where it's going to be.
You and the mayor could thumb wrestle?
We could do half and half. We'll do the first half.
You can
and-
take them.
All right, does anyone have anything in the other section? I just want to mention that we do have a professional development session coming up next Monday, the 17th. I believe that's the 7th. The 19th, I'm sorry, it's a Wednesday. Yes, and then right after this meeting is our closed session across the hall. All right, we're looking for that motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and we'll call this closed. Thank you.